Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. This side Priya Bhatia. And in this specific video, we will be discussing about the loss functions that we have in deep learning. I hope that before coming to this video, you already have watched my previous session where we have discussed in depth about the activation functions and its importance as a part of neural network architecture, right? So today we will try to continue our discussion with respect to loss functions. As it's the very first module, so obviously you will observe that I'm trying to teach you these topics in a way that you will be able to understand the importance of these functions that we're covering up. Later on, when we will be trying to, go towards the exact neural network architecture, the different kinds of algorithms that we have, there we will discuss in a lot more depth with respect to the architecture wise, what is the meaning of different types of activation functions and the loss functions in a lot more detail. But for now, just try to understand it conceptually, that what is the meaning of loss function, why it is required, how many different types of loss functions that we have. So today I'll try to answer all of these questions. So without wasting any time, now let's get started. Now let's focus on, first of all, what is the meaning of a loss function. Uh, there are several people who are quite confused about this definition of loss function. So today, I think if you will watch this session till the very end, you will get a lot of clarity about this. So whenever we are talking about loss function, you can say it's the way or it's a method of doing a evaluation, right? Of evaluating how well your algorithm, or you can say your model, is being trained, is trained, is being trained on the provided data set. So we are training our model, right? So how well it is being trained, this is the way to evaluate that. Loss function is a way to evaluate that whether the training happened in an appropriate manner or not. And if yes, how much appropriate? Like what is the error rate with which we can say that whatever be the number we are getting, it can have this much error, maybe 2%, 5%, 7%, and so on. So it's a way to evaluate that how well the model is being trained on the provided data set. Now, if let's say you are saying that my loss function value, which I am doing the evaluation, is quite high. For example, you are trying to measure the loss function value, and you are saying that this loss function value is quite high. It simply indicates that your model is very poor. Like the training happened in a very poorly fashioned manner, and that is the main reason that it is not able to give you an optimal result. So that is the clear idea. And if let's say you are saying that my loss function value is quite low, low means that somehow your model is trained pretty well, so it is doing a really a great job. It is doing really a great job in terms of giving you the correct results, right? In terms of giving you the great predictions. So that is the main idea about the idea behind the loss function, directly or indirectly, how it is being connected with the model. That's what I have clearly showcased you over here. Now, if you remember, or if you are from a machine learning background, I am expecting that many people, those who are watching my videos of deep learning, they already have somehow looked upon the concepts of ML. There is a very basic algorithm in machine learning called as linear regression. I'm not sure how many of you are aware about this concept, but I'm giving you a gist of what this algorithm said in ML terms. Basically, this linear regression algorithm tries to find the best fit line. It tries to find the best fit line. And specifically being used in regression task, regression based tasks. So when we are saying regression based task, it means that the final prediction will be of continuous number, continuous value. For example, you're talking about house price prediction. You're talking about the final score of any specific person, depending upon their past history, depending upon their academia record. So all of these belongs to a continuous prediction points, right? Now, when we're talking about linear regression, you must have observed that, for example, let's say I will be having two parameters, x-axis and this is y-axis. And whenever we are trying to train the data points, for example, here we have, 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 right? And let's say here also we will be having data points available. So we are trying to train our model, and let's say our model says that this is the best fit line we have, where the equation of the line will be y cap, which is equals to mx plus c. Mx plus c, where m is the slope, c is the intercept. M is the slope, c is the intercept, right? Now, if I want to find out that what is the error of any given point, error means that how far that specific point is, right? What is this error with respect to any of the given specific points? That is what we want to measure. Am I saying it correctly? So error or the loss function value was, when we discussed about these specific topics, is the difference between the yi minus yi cap whole square. So this is the gap or the difference between the actual, so this is the actual data points that we have, and this is the predicted data points that we have. So if we will try to evaluate the difference between actual and predicted, and we'll do the squaring of that, that is what we call as a loss function. Now, this loss function value will always belongs to a single training data or records that we have, right? And if you will try to accumulate all of the data points that you have, for example, let's say your data points are from I equals to 1 to n, so that particular thing will become a cost function. So if you will try to accumulate and you will do summation, so minus of 1 by n, summation of I is equals to 1 to n, y of I minus y of I cap whole square. Same thing I am doing, but here I am doing as a bundle or as a batch. If you will try to accumulate the results, the error values, that same thing will become the, I would say, cost function that we will be having, right? So this is something that we will be having a cost function of mean squared error, MSE. Now, one thing which you must have observed over here is that this loss function and cost function both are somehow trying to indicate the error values only. But there is a question which is very famous in interviews, that what is the difference? What is the difference between loss function versus cost function? So always remember, this is the main difference, and people are usually using these two words interchangeably, which is not correct, right? So if I will try to showcase you the cost function, if you will say cost function of maybe MSE, right? So you will see that always and always they are picking up the 1 by n value, 1 by n value. But when you're talking about a simple loss function, it will not pick up or it will not accumulate those n data points that we have. It will just take for individual sample data that we have. This is in terms of linear regression that we usually study in as a part of a machine learning algorithm. So this is a portion of machine learning ML specific algorithms that we will be having. But now we are in a session of deep learning, right? So what is this loss function in the context of deep learning? Can you tell me? Yes. So basically, if you will try to take maybe two specific columns that we have, let's say the first column indicates let's say the score of, or maybe the CGP of any student, and the second column indicates the IQ level. Let's say we are rating it out of 10. And the last column indicates that what is the final package of that specific candidate. So we have three columns, and let's say package is the target column that we have, right, in a given data point, where depending upon how much is the CGP of a person and how much is the IQ level of that person we have, we are trying to predict that what is the final package with which the student gets placed. So maybe let's say we are saying that maybe the CGPA is 8, IQ is 9, the package placement is maybe 25. Let's say this is in the form of LPA. Okay. Then CGPA is 6, IQ is 7, package is, let's say, 3.4. CGPA is 5, IQ is 6, and let's say the package is 2.5. Let's say CGPA is 7, IQ is 9, and here the package is 12. Let's say this is the kind of data points that we have. Now what we want in our model is, this is the actual data which we call as Y, right? Which is what we call as Y. Then we have a predicted values, predictions, which we call as Y cap. Now this is something which will be given to us by the model. So what will happen is, let's say we will be having, we can try to create a neural network. We will be having a neural network where we have two, I would say, input values. One is x1, another one is x2. x1 and x2. x1 indicates again the CGPA entries, and x2 indicates again the IQ level entries. Now, let's say we will be having in between a lot of hidden layers, right? And this is how the internal layer is passing all the input values that we have. And finally, at the final result, we will be having one output layer. This output layer is providing us the prediction Y cap, which indicates the predicted package. Predicted package. Right? Now, when we are talking about, I hope you all remember in my previous discussions we have covered up that when we are moving from left to right, right, there will be a feed forward propagation which will happen in the neural network architecture. So feed forward propagation will happen. Now what will happen in this? x1, which is the CGPA value, will get multiplied with, let's say this is W1, this is W2, this is W3. Then this is, let's say, W4, this is, let's say, W5, this is, let's say, W6. So we have the weights available over here, and definitely this value of x1, which is the value of CGPA, will get multiplied with W1, then plus x1 into W2, plus x1 into W3. Similarly, for next layer, we will be having x2 into W3, then here we will be having x2 into W4, right? So basically, if you will be trying to observe over here, for every specific network, for example, let's say this is H1, this is H2, and this is H3. So the value of H1 we will be able to get via the multiplication of x1 W1 plus what value we will be having over here? x2 W4. x2 W4, right? Similarly, we will be able to get the value of H2, which is nothing but, you can say, x1 W2 plus x2 w5. Similarly, we will be able to get the value of h3, which is x1 w3 plus x2 w6. So in this way, we will be able to get the hidden layer values as h1, h2 and h3, which is a part of a linear functions that we will be able to get over here. Then obviously these values, whatever we will be able to get, maybe further there will be an activation function which will be able to, accumulate all the values and convert them into a normalized form. Now, let's say at the final prediction set, maybe I am giving the package CGPA as 8, which is my first data point, and the IQ level, which is the second value that we have, as 9. So what we will do, or what our system will be able to generate, let's say as the predicted package at the very end, maybe as 23. But the actual value which my model was giving to me was 25, which you can see very clearly. So prediction says it is 23, actual says it is 25. So there is a gap, right? Similarly, let's say here also the same thing is happening. When you are trying to pass 6 and 7 as the CGPA and the IQ, you are getting the package which is the predicted one as 3.2. Similarly, if the CGPA is 5 and 6 as the IQ, actual is 2.5, but somehow your prediction says it should be 2.7. Similarly, you are having another record where 7 is CGPA is there, 9 IQ is there, actual is 12, but prediction says that it should be 11. So in this way, what will happen now? It will try to, at every iteration, create the difference between the value of y cap, which is the prediction given by the neural network, and the value of y. So for example, in this case, it will try to accumulate what is the value of 23 minus 25, which is the actual one, whole square. So there will be a gap, which is what we called as a loss function in terms of neural network. And now what will happen is it will go back. It will reiterate it back, which we called in the form of neural networks as the process of back propagation, where the updates will happen, where the weights and biases, if any, will be updated. So this is the main thing which will happen as a core step of back propagation. So as and when we progress towards, I would say, extreme right to left, so in that specific scenario, all the weights, all the biases will be updated as a core part of, I would say, back propagation. And this is the simple meaning of training in neural network, right? You will do the similar step for all the number of records that you have. At the end of the day, what you want is, you want that we will be having a minimum value of the assigned loss function that we have. Minimum value of the assigned loss function that we have. That is the core idea of loss function, I would say. That is the core idea of loss function. So I hope it is clear to everyone. There is a one author, I'm not sure how many of you have heard his name, by the name of Peter Drucker. He's an author, an educator. There is one sayings by him that you can't improve what you can't measure, right? So this is the inspiration of this loss function, what you can't measure. So why I'm talking about this specific point? Basically, the purpose of loss function is to get that measurement done so that we can improve our model. If we don't have any as such parameter where we can measure it properly, then how we will be able to improve our model? And that's the whole idea about this loss functions that we have, right? So I have talked about in the context of ML, which I have not deep dived into it because this is a specific video for deep learning, but you can consider that this core concept of loss function comes from ML algorithms only. Every specific algorithm, every specific functionality is different, and as per that we have different types of loss functions as well. But in deep learning context, how it will be originated and how will it work, I hope that now it is pretty much clear to everyone, right? Now let's come to the next important point, that how many different types of loss functions that we have. So how many different types of loss functions that we have. So we know now what is loss function. And I hope you also understood the concept that what is the difference between loss function versus cost function. Cost function will try to take the complete full-fledged batch in one go. Loss function will take one sample, one training data at a time, right? Now, when we're talking about regression specific task where we want to do the prediction of any, I would say, continuous value. So that is where we will talk about regression specific problems. And in that case, the important metrics that we have is MSE, which we called as mean squared error. We will be having another metric which we called as a loss function metric, MAE, mean absolute error. After that, third metric that we have is Huber loss, right? Let's talk about all these three of them first of all, and then maybe we will move ahead. Mean squared error, just few seconds back I have talked about. It's the gap between the actual and the predicted value, and when you will do the square of them, you will be able to get the final result, right? Now, what are the advantages of this mean squared error, right? So when we're talking about this MSE, mean squared error, you will see that this is a quite famous matrix. This is a quite famous loss function, which is very widely used in deep learning applications also and in machine learning applications also. Why is that so? The very first thing is that it is very easy to interpret. That is the beauty about this specific loss function, that we can easily interpret this loss function without worrying too much about what is happening in the back end, behind the scene. Now, second important thing is that it is differentiable. I hope you all know the concept of differentiable. I have talked about in my activation function video as well. So this specific loss function is easily differentiable. So at any point of time, if I want to work on upgrading the weight values, which we can upgrade via the maybe optimizers, right? For example, we have an optimizer called as gradient descent. I will talk about these optimizers also in a lot more detail in the upcoming class. But when we try to update the weights, there is a derivative term which is required. So if you will be having a loss function which is easily differentiable, that is something which is very, I would say, critical, important aspect when we're talking about the loss functions. Otherwise, the computation complexity will be huge. Third important thing is that this specific loss function will have only one local minima. Now, this is a concept which we will discuss in a lot more detail when we will talk about the optimizers. But just to share you one point over here, when you differentiate this MSE value, you will get this kind of a curve. This kind of a curve, right? So if you will be able to observe over here, this is the kind of a curve which you will be able to get. And if you will see in this curve, we just have a single local, as well as you can call it as a local also, and global also. So when we are looking for a minimum error or a loss function which is having a minimum value, it's quite easy to converge and reach to a point. There is no confusion because we just have only a single, I would say, minima, single local minima, single global minima in this specific instance, in this specific scenario, right? The only issue that we have in this MSE kind of a loss function is, as I would say, as a part of a disadvantage, is that it is not robust to outliers. What is the meaning of this? Let's say if you will be having an outliers available in your data, maybe you are saying that, given the same example, the CGPA is, let's say, 9 and IQ is, let's say, 9. Package, you are saying it as maybe 50 LPA. 50 LPA, or let's say you are saying it as 80 LPA. Now, this specific record is a part of an outlier because this kind of package is an exceptional thing in my record. What will happen is, let's say your model obviously will be trained as per the above records, will be giving the result, let's say that the output should be, maybe it is saying 30, right? This is the predicted target, predicted value 30, and this is the, I would say, actual value. So the gap between 80 and 30, which is, I would say, 50, right, is quite huge. 50, and then we are doing square of that in the part of, as a part of a MSE. So what will be happening is that if there is an outlier available, the value of that error will be very huge. And then if we will do the back propagation, the weight update which will happen, it will be a major change, right? How the weight updates usually happen as a part of a gradient descent optimizer. So I think I have talked about in my previous session as well. For example, new update is nothing but what is the old update that we have, old weight that we have, learning rate into derivative of the loss function that we are using with respect to the W old. So what I'm saying is that if the value of this W old and the value of this derivative that we are trying to differentiate, right, if it is not that much huge, so what will happen is there is a very big gap between the W new and W old value. That is the major limitation, I would say, of these outliers, because the error function or the loss function value will become very, very huge, and it is becoming very difficult at that point of time to converge to a local minima or a global minima. So that is where this MSE won't be applicable. So please pay attention whenever you are working in your deep learning projects. If you feel that you will be having a lot of outliers available in your data, never ever go with the MSE as a loss function. Otherwise, it will be a trouble for you. Now, in that case, what's next? What next we should use? And that is where we have something called as MAE. MAE loss function will be again absolute value of yi minus yi cap. We are trying to check. And when we are working with this is for a single sample data, this is the loss function. But if we are trying to work for a set of records that we have, which we are talking it as a cost function, it will be, I would say, 1 by n. Again, summation value I is equals to 1 to n, absolute value of yi minus yi cap. This is something which we have as the cost function of, I would say, MAE. So in this specific instance, when we're trying to evaluate the MAE as the cost function, what will happen over here? In this specific instance, if you will be able to observe, we will be able to take the exact gap between the value of yi and the value of yi cap, right? So when we will be having the outliers available in our data, in that specific instance, when the outliers are available, the gap will not be drastic because we're not doing a squaring of that. So the beauty about this is that when the outliers will be available, it is, I would say, more robust to outliers available in our data points. That is why when outliers are available, it is better idea to go with the MAE based approach, right? But again, it is having a disadvantage as it is not differentiable. It is not differentiable, right? But the advantage is that it is more robust to outliers. If you want to see the flavor of both of them, which is MSE and MAE, where you are saying that I will be having too many data points which contains outliers, and what is the best, I would say, loss function which I will use. That is where you can go with the Huber loss, which is a, I would say, combo of MSE and MAE, right? Which takes care of differentiability as well, but it also takes care of the robustness of the outliers. So this is a loss function which will be more robust to outliers that we have. So it combines both the flavors and will be able to provide the exact results that we have. Now, apart from this, this is basically for all those regression specific tasks, whether we are talking about MSE, whether we are talking about MAE, whether we are talking about Huber loss. But you all know that we will be having other tasks as well to perform as a part of a deep learning structure. For example, we can also work with the classification task, where we want at the end of the day that we will be having, let's say, two classes, yes or no, or we will be having a multi-class classification problem where we want to classify it as 0, 1, 2 class or 0, 1, 2, 3 class. It can be 3 classes, 4 classes, 5 classes, depending upon what kind of problem we are solving. In that case, again, we will be having a, I would say, loss functions called as binary cross entropy. So when we are talking about binary cross entropy, it works only for a binary classification task, as the name itself suggests. So as you want to classify two classes, right, either it has true or false, that is where you will always go with the binary cross entropy part, right? Second can be a categorical cross entropy loss function that we have. If, let's say, you are saying that, Priya, I am dealing with multi-class classification problem, right? I am dealing with multi-class classification kind of a task. In that case, you will always went towards this categorical cross entropy. And at the very end, we have the hinge loss, which is very widely used in SVM as a part of machine learning algorithms. We will talk about this also, that how it is being used as a context of deep learning in the upcoming classes. But yes, this is the kind of a, I would say, loss functions that we have as a part of a classification task. Now, for those people who are already aware in a core concept of ML about logistic regression and the cost function of logistic regression, it is quite easy for them to understand the loss function of binary cross entropy as well, because it is exactly the same. There is no as such gap between what we have understood in the context of logistic regression. And even I used to explain the derivation in logistic regression sessions also, that how that loss function comes into picture. But assuming that you already covered up those concepts, I'm just writing it over here. When we're talking about binary cross entropy, it is also called as, I would say, log loss cross entropy. So if you will see this word also in any of the books, don't get worried that I'm not sure what is this all about. Binary cross entropy and log loss cross entropy is one and the same thing. Basically, again, here you are trying, because we are dealing with only two classes, so it will be negative of y log of y cap minus 1 minus y log of 1 minus y cap. This is the core idea behind the binary classification task. If, let's say, we are trying to talk about the cost function, so this is individually with respect to single records that we have, this value of loss function. If you're talking about cost function, again, you can take a negative of, I would say, again, summation of I is equals to 1 to n, 1 by n, y of log of y cap minus 1 minus y of log of 1 minus y cap. I hope it is pretty much fine with everyone. You just have to combine all the values that you're getting as an error, right? Here in this specific case, you will observe as a part of an activation function in binary cross entropy, we are using a sigmoid activation function. All these things, when I will showcase you practically, you will get a better sense of it. We will be working with a sigmoid activation function. When we are dealing with a, I would say, binary classification task. So at the output layer, you always have a sigmoid activation function working over there. When we're talking about this categorical cross entropy, that is where you will be able to observe that the loss function includes y of j log of yj cap, where again the value of j belongs to how many data points that you are working with, you are considering over here. Again, here you will observe the function that we are using at the output layer belongs to softmax activation function. Softmax activation function. Basically, it is used for the multi-class classification task, right? So this is the overall idea behind both of them. And then we have hinge loss. We will talk about this specific function in a lot more detail when we will be working with exactly the data points that we will be having for a classification task. After that, there are further more advanced loss functions that we have nowadays. For example, if you're working with autoencoders, right, we will be having a loss function called as KL divergence. I'll not go today itself in lot more depth towards these advanced functions that we have, but definitely as and when we are working with this specific concept, in that video I will explain you in a lot more detail about this specific loss function. But today, just for the awareness part per se, I'm letting you know that these are the loss functions that we have. Then we have GANs, generative adversarial networks. Basically, they are used to generate, I would say, synthetic data. Synthetic means artificial data. And in this specific use case, again, we have a different types of loss functions. For example, you must have heard of discriminator loss function. We have min-max GAN loss function, right? Also, nowadays, we can create our own customized loss functions as well. That also I will showcase you in the practical implementation. Apart from this, when we are working with embeddings in deep learning, we have a loss function called as triplet loss function. So in this way, we will be having a lot many different types of loss functions, but definitely very widely used loss functions are what I have clearly talked about over this specific video. I hope that now you will be able to get a lot much sense about what is the meaning of a loss function. It is simply a method to evaluate that how well our model is performing. What is the expectations in an ideal case? We want this as the expectation of the ideal case, I would say. Ideal case, where what we want is this value to be very, very low, which clearly indicates that our model is performing pretty well. It will be able to give us a great result, great response as an output. After that, we have tried to understand this concept with respect to ML algorithm as a part of a linear regression task. We have seen that similar to what we have understood as a part of a loss function in the ML context, we have same context for deep learning also. It's just that here we are trying to get that predictions with the help of a neural network architecture. In the above case, we were getting as a part of a equation, generalized equation that we will be having. We have seen what is the difference between loss function versus cost function. Loss function will be applied only at single training data sample that we have. We will try to evaluate the difference between the actual and the predicted one. But when we're talking about cost function, we are trying to take the cumulative sense of all the records that we have and the gap between the actual and the predicted. After this, we have talked about why and what is the motivation for, evaluating this loss function. So we have seen that if until or unless we can't improve, if we can't measure anything, we can't improve it. You can't improve what you can't measure. That's so true, right? This is applicable in our personal life as well. So if I want to improve any of my knowledge, I have to first of all maybe give the interviews. I have to first of all give some tests to check that where I am actually standing in front of everyone. What is the level of the competition that I have? Then only I can improve over that part. Same thing is happening in the loss functions as well. And afterwards, we have talked about different varieties of loss function depending upon what kind of task our model is solving, whether it's a regression one, it's a component of classification part, it's a core task of autoencoders, GANs. Depending upon that, we have different varieties of loss functions that we have. I have talked about famous loss functions, mathematical intuition as well. But the remaining ones we will discuss as and when we will try to pick up those topics in our separate videos. I hope that this complete huge video will be pretty much clear to everyone. You can let me know your thoughts about the loss function, whether it is clear now or not, at least the usage of them and why it is required to have that understanding in terms of mathematical aspects as well. With this, I will try to end this specific video. We'll come up with another video where now we will discuss further interesting points with respect to deep learning portion. Bye-bye everyone and see ya.